Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we have with us Mr. Hieu, AO, Lieutenant Governor of South Australia, and Mr. Michael Abbott, QC, both of whom very generously accepted our invitation to serve as patrons of this conference. The story of Mr. Lee is remarkable, and he is truly a role model for migrants to this country. He arrived in Australia as a refugee from Vietnam in 1977. Once a manager with ASIC, that is the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, Mr. Lee is a recipient of the 1996 Australia Day Medal for outstanding service to ASIC and has been awarded the Centenary of Federation Medal for service to the advancement of multiculturalism. In 2008, Mr. Lee was awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Adelaide for his contribution and services to the community. Mr. Lee was appointed Lieutenant Governor of South Australia in 2007 and Chairman of the South Australian Multicultural and Ethnic Affairs Commission in December 2009. I now invite the Lieutenant Governor to officially open the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very generous and warm introduction. Can I first of all acknowledge Mr. John McCarthy, AO, Chairman of the Australia-India Council, Mr. Michael Abbott, QC, co-patron of this conference, of course Professor Catherine Robinson, President of Asian Studies Association of Australia, Professor Pranandra Jain, conference convener, sponsors. We can see here the Councillor Francis Wong here with us, all other presenters, our visitors from overseas and interstate, distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and thanks for your kind welcome. And I also would like to thank Uncle Louis for his gracious welcome to the country. It's an honor on many different levels officially to open this conference. I'm so delighted to welcome you at a state that has long been enriched by Asian influences. I'm proud to speak in my capacity as Australia's first vice-regal representative of Vietnamese descent. I'm happy to return to the campus of my alma mater, Adelaide University, and I am so excited to be here because I think Australia and Asia have so much still to learn from each other. It's terrific to share the patronage of this conference with Michael Abbott. As many of you might know, Michael has made a huge contribution to our understanding of Asia through his exceptional donations of Asian art to the Art Gallery of South Australia. From the dawn of multiculturalism in South Australia over 35 years ago, he has been quite active in collecting and donating Asian art to our state gallery. He has gifted nearly 1,000 pieces, worth a total of more than $3 million. And Michael's generosity led the gallery to announce recently that the Southeast Asian collection will be displayed in a space now renamed Michael Abbott Gallery. The art gallery is a couple of doors west of where you are sitting here. And if you have some spare time during this conference and you want to have a taste of what the best Adelaide can offer, South Australia can offer, before a visit to the famous Hieu chocolate wine centre to taste the best red wine, best drop of wine we have to produce, vibrant central market to see how multiculturalism in fact is in action, and the wonderful restaurants to experience our first-class culinary skills and the best cuisine in the world, I urge you to visit the art gallery, the Michael Abbott Gallery, and to take in one of the finest collections of Asian art in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to congratulate the Asian Studies Association and the conveners for devising such a thoughtful and timely theme for this conference. Crisis and opportunity are indeed strong threads running through the history and contemporary life of Asia. More than that, crisis and opportunity have long been central to the relationship between Australia and Asia. Our nation remains home to Aboriginal cultures that, of course, have graced this continent for tens of thousands of years. It is the longest surviving culture on this planet. And according to archaeologists, some of those cultures in the north had relationships of a kind with the peoples of Southeast Asia. In the mid-1800s, not long after the colony of South Australia was settled by Europeans, Chinese folk came to this land to seek out opportunity in gold mines, especially on the Victorian gold fields. If you drive down to the southeast of this state, you will come across a town called Rope, which is where boatloads of Chinese miners arrived before walking east to a place such as Ballarat. They did so to avoid a hefty tax placed on them if their boats arrived in Victoria. And when we think through the milestones of Australian history, many other interactions with Asia come to mind. Australia's colonies federated in 1901, for instance, partly out of concern that our defence forces would not be able to repel invaders. The identity, capability and motivation of such invaders was unclear, but this did not stop Australians from harbouring a fear of invasion from neighbouring Asian countries. We called that back then was the Yellow Perils. In the 20th century, there were many genuine crises and opportunities. We think, for example, a Japanese design on Australia during the World War II, and of Gott Whitlam's historic opening up to China in the 1970s. Probably the biggest and most influential crisis was the Vietnam War. That conflict led to a terrible death toll and enormous suffering. More than 3 million Vietnamese were killed, along with 50,000 Americans and more than 600 Australians, and countless others were injured. Here in Australia, our nation's involvement in the war led to crisis in the form of a huge protest on the streets and social upheaval. As you might imagine, this period had a profound personal impact on me. Starting from when I was born in Vietnam in the 1950s, war was basically all I knew until I was into my 20s. I lost my friends and family members in the war, many of them right in front of me, and I witnessed those death and destruction almost daily. And the 1975 defeat of the South by the Vietnamese North led to yet another crisis and opportunity. And that was the massive flow of refugees from Vietnam in the form of boat people. My wife Lan and I were two of those boat people. And the nature of our journeys across the wild sea of Southeast Asia and our arrival here in 1977 changed our lives forever. I will always remember the day our rickety old fishing boat chucked into Darwin Harbour with 42 of us crammed aboard. When our vessel was approached by a speedboat, we thought it belonged to the Australian Coast Guards or Navy, and that we were going to be sent back out to sea. But as the boat came closer and cut through the morning mist still rising off the water in Darwin Harbour, we saw two Aussie blokes standing on a tinny. They were wearing shorts and singlets. They had zinc cream on their noses. They had fishing rods ready to go. And they had the day's first stubbies of beer in their hands. They came up right next to our boat, and one of them raised a stubby in salute and shouted to me something that I will never forget. "G'day, mate. Welcome to Australia." They then sped off and went ahead with their fishing trip. We never seen them again. Lan and I eventually settled in Adelaide, along with many other Vietnamese former refugees, and we started a family. For 33.5 years, I have been witnessing a rapid social and cultural transformation in Australia, in South Australia, in Adelaide. From a rather conservative monocultural to a rich, colourful, multicultural society we are enjoying today, and very proud of it. I remember in the early days, after a few months staying in Pennington Hostel, where all the migrant refugees were accommodated for a little while, where our daily basic meals would include mutton, mashed potatoes, fish and chips, and some sausages, steak and 3 veggies. One day we decided to go to the supermarket and seeking to buy lemongrass for a Vietnamese dish we were planning to cook. In the sign of the times, I went to many grocery shops and trying to explain to them what the lemongrass looked like. They all have no idea what I was asking for. And eventually, in exasperation, the shopkeeper told me, "Mate, in this country, we don't eat bloody grass." In a further sign of times, I can tell you that one of my Vietnamese friends today uses all of his 50 glass houses in Virginia to grow just lemongrass commercially. And in the northern suburbs of Adelaide, he still can't meet the local demand. Ladies and gentlemen, the main point I want to convey to you this morning is that the theme of crisis and opportunity is by no means just confined to the history. It is, in fact, shaping our current relations with Asia, and it promises to be a trend well into the future. In recent times, for example, we have seen turmoil in our relationship with neighboring countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, and so on. We experienced the Asian financial crisis. We've dealt with tsunami, with terrorist attacks, with SARS, with bird flu, health crisis, all of those. It seemed to me that the old tyranny of distance that once bedeviled Australia is today irrelevant. It's clear that the people of Australia and Asia will need to continue to work closely together on prevailing crises and opportunities. Matters that come easily to mind include the large-scale flow of refugees in the region, the ongoing threat of terrorism, and the spread of disease such as HIV, AIDS, and various new forms of influenza. When smoke from bushfires in Indonesia affects the atmosphere in Australia, for example, we are reminded that dealing with the environment is perhaps our most pressing collective task. Despite the scale of our challenges, I remain optimistic about Australia's relationship with Asia and about our collective ability to find solutions. I feel this way because Australians are travelling to Asia more frequently. We are trading with one another daily, and Asian languages are among the top languages learned in our schools. Most of our 30,000 international students in Adelaide currently come from Asian countries. We as a nation are finally finding our place in Asia and starting to realise our potential. Here in South Australia, the arrival of settlement of many new groups of Asian migrants and refugees, mostly from Asia, further adding to our cultural richness. As you might know, the Adelaide Zoo, which is just down the hill behind us, recently become home to 2 giant pandas, and soon the South Australian government will present a gift to the people of Hong Kong of 8 koalas to be accommodated in the Ocean Park Zoo in Hong Kong. We are also developing a better understanding of Asian art and culture, especially through Adelaide's hosting of the annual ASAA Festival, the only one in Australia. The 4th ASAA Festival will commence in September with the participation from all major Asian countries. Ladies and gentlemen, of all the reason to be positive, the one that really stands out is the existence nowadays of so many Australian academics and students with expertise relating to Asia. And in my view, every one of you at this week's conference is a kind of Australian ambassador in Asia and Asian ambassadors to Australia. And every one of you has the potential to be an even better connector, an even stronger bridge to our region. Again, as the Lieutenant Governor of South Australia, I would like to formally welcome you to our state. I trust that the week ahead proves stimulating and rewarding. And most important of all, I wish you all the very best for your continuing link with Asia. It is now my great pleasure to declare the 18th Biennial Conference of the Asian Studies Association of Australia officially open. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. We are very privileged indeed to have you with us this morning to open the 18th Biennial ASAA Conference, and we thank you for your support. Before I ask Mr. Mike